Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and it wasn't quite the party in the Champions League we were expecting, guys. Celtic versus Zagreb, match day 6 has been and gone, and we've not come out of it with a victory, which I think, especially listening to Austin Trusty and a few of the other, like the players and the managers and whatever post-match, Celtic fans alike as well, it feels like this is definitely 3 points, an opportunity missed, and everyone is just clinging on to the thinnest of silver linings that, hey, at least we didn't lose, at least we came out of the game with a draw, which I think is the absolute bare minimum. In a game where the main currency was set up to be who would make the most mistakes, nobody really made any. Ultimately, it was a bit of a, I wouldn't even go as far as to say a stalemate, I would say it was more like a chess game where people were only playing with the pawns, But so much of this game was there to be seen. If you checked out the preview video especially, we got the whole starting 11 right, it looks like, at least for Zagreb, maybe not with Celtic. And in terms of the passages of play, the main threats, the main things that we could try and exploit as well as we better be careful of, all kind of did pan out in that way. Now, I know the conditions weren't fantastic, and, like we all seen what the stadium was all about, and there's a wee bit of a different vibe to the whole game overall. I heard lots of people comparing it to, like, non-Champions League games, different things like friendlies, dead rubbers, all sorts of stuff, and it did have a really weird feel about it. In the video today, we're going to break down what we've seen in the game. We'll probably start this analysis with player ratings, because I think, like, overall, like, you can just see the amount of actions that were kind of happening before we go into the nuts and the bolts, the actual phases of playing, the stuff that we've seen. After we cover this video, the next thing, it's all going to be all eyes on the cup final. If at any point in this video you do enjoy this type of content and you want to see some cup final preview stuff which will be coming on the channel, do not forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Get into the comment section, let me know your big takeaways from Zagreb, winners, losers, who surprised you, did anyone let you down? The comment section in the last couple of videos, guys, has been absolute fire. Some great contributions from you guys in the community. Always love to check out the comments on these videos. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Because like I said at the tip-off, I'm going to start with the player ratings, because I really do think a picture paints 1,000 words here. I think this really does accurately kind of show where the game was in terms of who was on the ball, who was making anything happen, and really just, ultimately where the game was decided. It was based on both of the goalkeepers. Schmeichel, essentially our highest rated player, only slightly behind Austin Trusty, and Zagorak here for Zagreb being their most highly rated player in the game. Looking at the playmakers for both teams, I said coming into this game, for me, Hatate had to put his name on this match, had to go and win it for us, had to be the guy that would take the shot, make the pass, whatever. And opportunities did open up for Hatate in this game, and sadly, it was on the wrong wavelength. The ball bobbled for him a little bit. The pitch did look pretty minging, to be honest with you, in terms of the quality of it. 13 missed passes in total isn't really outrageous for Hatate himself. He did win 2 tackles. He was decent enough, but he didn't take his chances. He didn't make the difference in the final third to find any of the other attackers make a chance for himself or whatever. And again, looking at Zagreb, their primary playmaker, Baturina, this guy was pretty mince. I had like 1 or 2 nice passes. And I did think after, when I was watching back the highlights of the game, also I watched the game live actually with the Axon boys. We did it at the Barra's art and design thing. Jackie McNamara was there as well. Huge honour for me to be sitting next to him on stage. Absolutely loved that. And anyway, Baturina. So when I was watching the highlights back, especially when it got to like Baturina's chance on the highlights package, I've started to think, like, if we had their chances, we'd have probably won this game. And really, as the rest of the highlights kind of panned out, I kind of stand by that. They didn't actually create too much in this one. Their better players play for Zagreb for a reason. Guys like Piaka and Rog, I think we've seen, like, even Cachavenda. All these guys were pretty decent footballers, weren't they? But they weren't, like, a huge step up, really, in a lot of ways to what we played domestically, in terms of, how ferocious they were, how, quick they were. Like, pace and power is like a big part of what works at this level. We hear Brendan Rodgers talk about it a lot, and we'll talk about how we brought that to the game, because I think that was probably one of our biggest strengths in this one. But, like, honestly, like, it did feel, maybe it was the way they were set up, like, really deep and letting us have possession, which I think, again, like, we covered this in the preview, that they were very understrengthed here. Brendan said coming into the game that he's not going to read into that narrative, and he thinks there's always then opportunities for other players to come through. And do you know what? Like, this team on paper, the midfield 5 especially, are worth paying some respect to. Like, they can pass. He did see that. They did make some good chances in this game. Like I say, I'd rather had their chances than ours, having seen the game fully. But they were still quite clearly for there to be seen that it was a very understrength team. It was a team that certainly could have been gotten at. And, the goalkeeper, Zagorak, the defenders just putting their bodies on the line. This Rostovsky, but to be fair, like him and Baturina are both like best 11 players. Forget the whole B team. Maybe even Spikic as well, or Piaka, depends on fitness. But there's like three players here that are like best 11 players for them. And this really did, that was probably the biggest part of it that stopped us, I think, like actually doing anything decent, because Dyson was just completely nullified by this Rostovsky, just couldn't get anywhere by him. We're trying to have him a bit more narrow and try and get into these types of channels, and it just never really came off. Taylor normally coming in here to overload and be the wild card. Normally it's really effective when he pops up like in these types of areas here, of course in these areas, but he needs to either quickly be running into space himself, or someone, as soon as he's arriving in there, maybe like an Atate type, or sometimes Dyson, needs to be ready to peel into that space there, because that's where we're ultimately trying to get to. But it just felt like on this side of the pitch here, nothing could get forward, everything was quite slow, and it was really crowded. And then whenever we would go over to the right hand side, like Kun always had bodies in front of him. There was always huge distances between him and Kyogo, always a huge number of players. And this is where like Bernardo was handy in this game, and I definitely think Bernardo was the right play here. But Bernardo isn't and I know he was in these areas, and he doesn't mind that third man run once in a while or whatever, but it's not his bag, and we didn't get that from him enough. And I'm not really leveling this at him too much. It's more that Kun had a big mountain to climb, and I think because this is the only side of the pitch, we can try and play wide, especially in the first half when Johnson's on, before he takes that bang and comes off at half time. It's very easy for them to really defend the castle, defend the box here. The only wide player they've got to deal with is kind of on a 1v2 most of the time, and then the other one can't get by in a man-for-man situation here, and even the double-up isn't causing any threats. So then it becomes a game of mistakes. Who makes a mistake, a shot's going to come from it. Whoever makes a mistake is going to give away the free kick, give away the corner. And, there was no one, except for Kun, who did it a couple of times in this game, but no one was willing to break the lines. No one was willing to break the rules for a second and go further forward. I was really hoping, when we get Bernardo in this position, normally we get a bit more from McGregor actually breaking forward, and it wasn't until McCowan came on that we seen a little bit of that before Bernardo came off for Engels. But when you've not got that drive through the middle, Hatate is doing the attacking midfield on both sides of the forward here, so if the ball is quickly switched, he's not going to be as advanced over. Maybe there's then more pressure on Kyogo to come into these channels, but Kyogo never wants to be in those channels. He always wants to be in between the posts, coming into these types of zones here for cutbacks and tap-ins and stuff like that, which is, fair enough. But if Dyson has been asked to tuck in so narrow, and Hatate is in this zone also, there has to be more onus on Kyogo to then come out into this zone here, especially if Alistair Johnson's at the halfway line. We can't just always afford to have that striker be so positionally fixed, because then these two guys here, one can see him, and then the guy that can't, is obviously get side on, can get an eye on him and can get the shouts from behind where he is and stuff. So if then Kun does get by two guys, the third man, it's an easy decision for him to make. And we had no route to goal, essentially. This is what this all kind of boils down to, sadly. And really, as I lay the game out here, I stand by the preview. I think what a huge difference would have made in this game. And I thought with Taylor getting booked so early in the match that he would have been subbed in this game, but I suppose the Alistair Johnson half-time sub probably superseded that in terms of the game plan and everything else that would go thereafter, because we still seen the 5 subs tick in by the 75th minute or something like that. There wasn't that 88th, 85th minute sub at the very end, so but Valley was so much needed in this game, because if Dyson is going to be more narrow and not get any joy against this guy 1v1, Dyson can't run him into the ground, he can't beat him into the space. You need someone that can give this guy 2 things to deal with, because this guy won't always catch Valley. And by the way, a few times we were lucky that we didn't quite need to catch this guy, and again I thought Valley's recovery pace, if we had him on the left hand side, I think he would have been a little bit quieter in this match, and we would have got a lot more joy. But then we would have had another wide option, so then when we are dominating the ball like we are, we could easily then play both sides of the pitch. But like I say, Johnson coming off for Ralston maybe kind of handcuffs the manager to an extent. And I suppose then if you do have Ralston and Valley, that is kind of just a weird game state to be in. So that's actually a bit of a tough one in real time, as it were. But I think we should have been starting with Taylor. Valley. And again, I think Kyogo, the exact same as Hatate before this match. I was talking about how he has to build on that goal at the weekend. You know, he should be aiming to be, he should be undoubtedly the first choice striker. You know, that should be his mentality. He should be affronted that we went and spent 9 million quid on Ida for competition with him. This first pass in the game was an absolute joke. You know, I turned around to Kev at Axom and I said to him, like, that's what happens when you only get 3 touches a game against, you know, your Dundees and your Motherwells and whoever else he's picked against. You know, he's just, and he's not a willing build-up player. So in these times when it's needed, he's just not got the instructions, he's not got the game plan, he's not got the rooks, he's never had to do it, doesn't ever want to do it, and he's never pushed to do it. So in these moments here, like, he was so ineffectual. And I think Big Ida, when he did come on, like, you see that he is a very willing build-up player. His passing quality is still, you know, yet to, you know, still leaves something to be desired, let's say. But he will do those movements. And, you know, the best passages of play were after we made a lot of these changes. You know, Forrest coming on, and, like, I've said this time and time again about Forrest, even at his age, he's not got the pace he used to have, of course, but he is a winger, you know, like, he lives on the chalk, you know, he lives on the line. He knows how to get space against a guy like this who he can't maybe beat physically, whether it's using his teammates or doing something a little bit different himself. And Engels, I thought, when Engels came on, he was, like, in a good way, kind of bull in the china shop, where he was really, like, itching to, you know, rectify maybe some of the absent performances that he's had in recent weeks. And his kind of quality that you did see when it came on in the final third here made a big difference. And it wasn't until, like, the likes of, you know, like Forrest, when he's out wide here, the ball he plays for Engels when he's running through this channel here for the cutback for Ida, that was the first, like, route to goal sequence of play that we've seen, like something off the training ground where it's like, we are dominating possession, we are going to play wide on this side of the pitch because we can now. You know, we've not just got Kuhn on this side. And by the way, McKeown on his left foot playing in here, we're looking for balls inside into Ida because he can do build up. And Engels on this side with his right foot again, we're looking to play inside balls into Ida, with these guys maybe offering, you know, a different, you know, so this is just a much better balance to it in actual fact. And it is when we look the most dangerous, and sadly I just don't think this team had enough minutes on the pitch, even though the manager, full credit to him, these subs were all made by the 71st, 72nd minute or something, all 5 subs, so you can't say he was slow to react or slow to read the game. I think he's actually read the game very well here, but the players did really, until this happened, Kyogo and Hatate especially for me, really didn't grab the game by the scruff of the neck well enough. You know, there was just, it felt like, you know, and again, when the clock is ticking on, like, it can look that McKeown's got a bit of urgency, very unlucky with his shot. And again, like, Hatate should have had a shot like that in the first half as well from the edge of the box, but he tried to square it through for Bernardo, and, like, that was not a bad decision either. Totally wrong type of ball. And it's, you know, so he's played it blind as well. So, but McKeown and Engels, very direct, not thinking twice, and being like, let's test the goalkeeper. Because again, like, this Zagreb guy, who would he get a game? Would he get a game for Hearts? I don't think so. Would he get a game for Aberdeen? Maybe at the moment because their guy's injured. He'd probably get a game for Hibs. Don't think he'd get a game for St Mirren. And a lot of these other guys, like, seriously, like, I noticed Gabriel had some decent energy. He was actually a wee bit of a trouble at times, to be honest with you. And again, we maybe lost a little bit of that while Alistair Johnson picking up that bang. And Ralston, you know, Ralston shows that initiative. He shows that industry on this side of the pitch as well. And like I say, in the latter stages of the game is when we were at our best, but the team maybe just didn't get enough minutes on the pitch. For me, Ida and Valley would have been the starters over the team that we did have, for me personally. And I think we would have got the goal ultimately. I did say in the preview, like, if we don't concede, we win this, and we didn't concede. We made absolutely no mistakes. Like I said in the tip-off, that, you know, I did feel like that was part of the team talk coming into this, like, make no mistakes, you know, not pointing any fingers, Carter Vickers, you know, but we made no mistakes. We made a couple, you know, they created a few chances playing this left channel, as we've seen time and time again, and in the latter stages of the game, you know, both sides of the pitch actually opened up for them because we had some offensive symmetry we could play on both sides all of a sudden, so they had 2 sides to play against. And although their chances, I don't say, like the Taylor one where Taylor, like, fluffs the ball. Taylor, like, that's probably the only player I've not mentioned that's worth mentioning, but Taylor comes out of this game kind of half okay. You know, he wins tackles, he wins his duels, no two ways about it. He makes effective passing for the most part when he's on the ball. But having watched the game, you know that he was, like, just a little bit off it, you know, sadly. A wee bit in the wrong position. He made 2 vital mistakes. One is that fluffed pass. It's definitely in the highlight package. I don't know if the second one is, but there was 2 moments in the game, and he got booked so early on in the match. you know, that was a game where maybe not to the same level as my expectations for Kyogo and Hatate were, but again, similar to Bruges, what I said about Taylor, like that's a game where he should be showing everyone he's worth the new contract, he's worth the money, he is Champions League level. It's Zagreb, it's Bruges. Those are the games that Taylor has to be brilliant in, you know, like we've seen Liam Scales do, like we've seen now Paulo Bernardo do in the Zagreb game. Couldn't against Leipzig, you know, the list goes on for the players that have showed their worth, you know, showed their mettle at this level. And Taylor is, you know, is getting opportunities every season. He's getting better every season. But I think now, like, we've probably got the best version of Taylor that Taylor's going to be. And if this is still the Champions League turnout that we're getting from him against these opponents that we should be beaten. Now, having a look at the Champions League table as it stands right now, we're only actually halfway through match day 6 at point of recording because we were the first game to play on the Tuesday. So this will still shake up a little bit with the teams that have played 5 matches at the moment. But it does now feel that like we're cut off from that top 8. We could have dreamt about that, it felt like. And it does feel that these 2 points dropped kind of will separate us from that top maybe 15. What will maybe kind of form out there. So maybe 12, top 12 to 15, depending on how some other results do go on match day 5. I do feel that we're just need to tick on, and we just need to make sure that we don't let the signs of, I don't want to say complacency, but where we did fall short against Bruges and Zagreb, like these like problems that we've had in actually cutting the team open, testing the goalkeeper, both of them have got out of jail big time against us. Then, you know, I'm sure we'll be fine and I'm sure we'll do good. But it definitely further highlights the need for attack and reinforcement off the bench, you know, because Forest is fine to bring on, but there is no other option other than Forest at this level. And fine, obviously, on the basis of last night, doesn't win you games, simply put. And I hope coming out of this game, because Brendan made a comment, I think it was before was it after Ross County coming into the Aberdeen game, I forget, but he mentioned in one of the recent press conferences in the last little window of fixtures we've had that the actual performance in the game from the players won't really change his plan on the starting 11 too much, because he knows how good they all are. They're all first team, they're all in their plan, they're all in the squad management plan, as it were. And I do think this team was largely picked on the laptop, as it were. You know, when they're mapping out the 4 fixtures, we'll do these rotations. They could pick the exact team they wanted last night. It was a huge point of strength that we had coming into this game, that whatever the best 11 was, Brendan could have chose it. And it did feel that, you know, like because no one got injured, everything went according to plan. We could bring Scales in for these games. We could play McKeown on this match. We can start Ida here. We can start Kyogo there. All this stuff went off seemingly without a bit of a hitch. That it felt like we still prepared for this, like Rodgers said, as if it was the Zagreb best 11 available. And I think if he'd really looked at Taylor over the last couple of weeks, there was a decent argument to say that, you know, Valley's done it in the Champions League for us already. He's actually showing it already. Atalanta away, need I remind us. And he does look way more lively than Kyogo. Now, Bernardo coming into this game, I think, is maybe a little bit of what we've actually seen in the matches from Bernardo versus what we've seen from Engels. So there's maybe a little bit of that went on here, rather than being full hog, you know, like actual meritocracy right now, like who is actually on form, who is actually playing the best. And there is a balance to be struck there, so I don't think that would have brought Luke McKeown into the starting 11 for Hatate in this game, to be honest. But outside of that, yeah, I think like we really should have started with Ida in this one, in Valley was ultimately what I'm getting at. Looking forward, guys, to catching the comment section on this one. I think I've kind of said everything I've got for you. I hope you have enjoyed this one. Looking forward to the cup final, of course. Looking forward to catching the comment section on this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. On screen are now some other stuff that we've made on the channel that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hail, hail, and won the hoops.